Hi, and welcome to another Tom Ray's Art Podcast. Don't forget to go to tomrayswebsite.com and check out all the stuff that I have there. Daily webcomic, my video vlog, which just kind of covers by week. I kind of go through my day and just kind of like what it's been like to do my business that I have here, where I sell pop culture, illustrated books, toys, and other items from the 60s to the 90s. And also, I have the podcast there. Speaking of which, that was a lovely transition. Why, thank you, Tom. His name is René Gauthreaux. He's from down south, and he does a daily webcomic about, it's autobiographical, much like mine is, and he posts it on his Instagram page. And when we talk, we actually have a conversation about how he's from a smaller town, and then later on, when he decides to pursue art, realizes how sometimes being in a small town without a large arts program can be detrimental when you decide to go out into the big world where there are a lot more artists. And he gets kind of a humbling experience out of it. And it's a really interesting story. And I was really excited the way that it laid out. And it's just one of those things where this is the type of conversation on a podcast that I think is really cool to have. So I was happy to meet him. Here's my interview with René Gauthreaux on Tom Ray's Art Podcast.
I'm René Gauthreaux. I draw a daily autobiographical comic.
So where are you located?
I am in Pflugerville, Texas, which is a suburb of Austin, Texas.
Okay. And so how long have you lived there? Are you from there or?
Nope. I started out in Paradis, Louisiana, which is 25 miles southwest of New Orleans. I grew up there, lived there my whole life, moved to Austin around 98, went back to New Orleans and stayed there for a little while until Katrina hit, and then came back to Austin, and I've been here ever since, so about 15 years.
Okay. Were you there for school, or what did you go there for originally?
Honestly, I moved to Austin to write a comic book.
What?
That was my, that was my intentions, was moving here to write a comic book. It did not pan out as I thought it would, but that was why I originally came. And then Katrina hit, and my girlfriend at the time and I needed, a place to go. Our house had 7 feet of water in it.
Right.
And Austin was, for me, a comfortable place to go. She and I had been here a couple of times together on vacation, and she liked it a lot, so we just moved here.
Tell me the logic behind, I'm going to write a comic, and to do that, you go to Austin, Texas. What? I feel like there's a gap there in that logic.
There is. There's a, and, going through artist process and creative process a lot. I've thought a lot about how I've gotten to where I am right now, and how we are at September 2020, and thinking about this podcast and thinking about how I could explain what I do and why I do it.
Mm-hmm.
It goes back to being a little kid. It goes back to pre-first grade, and there's things that happened along my timeline that got me to this point. And if you want to go back that far, we can dive into that and get the full picture of me.
We can go back as far as you want. This is your ride.
So I've always drawn. I was very into using pens. Even as a little kid, I loved comic books. I loved cartoons, the newspaper funny, stuff like that.
What were some of your favorites?
Calvin and Hobbes, of course.
Okay.
Calvin was, that was just the best.
Yeah.
I always liked the Peanuts, and I've recently gotten into reading the old 1950s Peanuts, which were
Oh yeah.
just amazing. Seeing where he started with stuff.
I've got tons of them behind me, but I'm not going to rifle through those right now.
Yeah, you talk about a king of medium. You know, Schultz was it was amazing what he did with those characters and using emotions that really didn't show up in comic books before he kind of put those out there, especially with little kids. You know, you don't really think of little kids as having these complex emotions, but they totally do. You know,
Right.
and when you're a little kid, you know you have those emotions, and you know that adults don't recognize those emotions. So it's it's nice to see that in a comic.
Mm-hmm.
Going into like high school and stuff, I got into some of the autobiographical comics, the Robert Crumb stuff and
Okay.
P-Car. And I hit onto one of your favorites, Ivan Brunelli, the Schizo comics.
Oh,
Those
right.
were just mind blowing to me. He was so dark and guttural and just ripping himself to pieces, literally,
Yeah.
in those comics that it really appealed to me. So that type of comic is something I've always wanted to do. I have great parents. My mom and dad were both, supportive of art. They would like to have seen me go to college and, have something to fall back on. But, they always supported the art stuff. My mom had me tested for gifted and talented
Okay.
in kindergarten. I know some school systems have this, but and some don't. But there was this gifted and talented program where the smarty pants kids got stuck in a classroom with a different teacher, and got to do smarty pants things away from all the other kids.
Okay.
And so I got into that for literature and reading and stuff like that. But I also got into it for art. And the weird thing about the school I was at, the art teacher that would come to the school for talented art also went around to other schools. So they kind of drove around all day, went to different schools. I was the only kid in the class. From first grade to fourth grade, I was the only kid in class.
Huh.
Which was odd, and it wasn't like there were other kids that couldn't draw, or it was I don't understand what happened there, but it definitely gave me a big head about drawing, because it was
I could see that, I suppose. Like none of the other kids made the cut. It's just me.
right. It was I'd have to be really mature and grounded for it not to give me a big head, and I was 7, 8, 9 years old.
Which is not mature nor grounded.
I don't think I'm mature and grounded now, so I definitely wasn't then. So I definitely thought that my drawings were special, and everybody liked my drawings. Everybody told me how good my drawings were, and it just kind of built up something in me that would prove to be fatal later on in going forward. But around fifth grade, they decided. I imagine there was a meeting at the school board office where they were like, "This doesn't make any sense. We need to have more kids in this class."
Right.
And instead of just me, there were 3 other kids.
I'm starting to wonder if the teacher kind of like suckered them. Like I can just teach one kid. And it's
right.
I don't have to do anything else. I'll tell them I'm going to other schools, but I'm really just going home.
Yeah, there was no phone tracking at that time. So one really good thing about it was I met a guy who was my teacher who named Bob Tamba, who ended up being kind of a mentor and a lifelong friend of mine. That was really good. I drew all the time. I drew in class, I drew outside of class, I drew at home. The typical, I guess would be typical, I don't know, space scenes, aliens, robots,
Really?
Animals, just you name it. I was into it. G.I. Joe battle scenes, stuff like that. I had a wild imagination, and still do, and it just fueled all of my artwork. Went that route. Kept drawing. Stayed in talented art through seventh grade, and then in eighth grade I went to a all boys Catholic school, which around eighth grade when hormones are starting to kick in, all boys Catholic school was just not the best place to be. I wanted to be where the girls were, and it was not my cup of tea. But one of the good things I think came from the 2 years I stayed there. I did some of my first long form comics there.
Okay.
And these were just on, loose leaf paper, front and back, bleed through, just horrible stuff. And real cheesy parodies of superheroes.
I was going to ask what format you went with, and you went with the superheroes, huh?
It was totally comics with an X at the end type of superhero. I had a rivalry between Toilet Paper Man and Tissue Dude, and they were fighting Booger Man. It was just powder,
real highbrow stuff.
Oh, totally.
You were solving the world's problems.
It was toilet humor,
right.
But these would get passed around school, and kids loved them. All my classmates loved them. I also dabbled in political cartoons. This was right around the time of the first Iraq War, so that was on TV all the time. And I'm sure you remember, the first Iraq War was the CNN latched onto it. We had 24-hour coverage of it. So it was so prevalent and I loved political cartoons. Even though,
really,
at that age, I didn't really quite understand everything that was going on in them. I just loved the idea. I loved all the cartoons in the newspaper. It just seemed so cool that somebody had a job where they drew, funny pictures of the mayor saying stupid stuff. That appealed to me. So, again, I'm running into this situation where everybody, loves my cartoons, loves my comics. And I'm the art kid, I'm the art guy. I draw all the time. That's what I do. It's my identity. I went back to public school. I guess it was like ninth grade. Yeah, ninth grade. And of course, girls were there. So, a young man's fancy turns to love. And, that was a distraction from the schoolwork aspect of things. But the art continued. I had a great art teacher in high school, Lloyd Sinsat. And again, this was in the talented art program. Now, by the time you get to high school, there were multiple classes in the talented art program. So, it was like a kind of a normal class, a little bit smaller, but Mr. Sinsat loved me. He was a huge champion of my work. I could get away with murder in his class. Assignments that, everybody had to do, I kind of got exempted out of, or I could do them in my own way. I was, unabashedly the teacher's pet, and I'm sure people hated it. And I'm sure I abused that privilege. But again, there's that whole not mature and not grounded. So what was I going to do? I wasn't going to be modest or anything. I was a teenager in high school. So I ended my high school career on a high note. I had a senior show, got in the newspaper. Everybody loved my stuff. I felt, on top of the world. And
when you did the senior show, was it, were you still doing comics as your, like, what kind of stuff were you doing with the projects, or when you did the showings, were they more still lifes? Like, what kind of stuff were you actually drawing other than comics?
So, my art teacher, Mr. Sinsat, was involved with historic preservation in the New Orleans and South Louisiana area.
Okay.
And what they did was, in conjunction with Tulane University Architecture, they picked a plantation house each year, and they spotlighted that. So the kids from, well, the young adults from Tulane College would work on some architecture projects, and then us in high school would work on these huge pictures of the plantation house, and we do it in different stages of the plantation house because they go through different phases. Mine were always the plantation house with tons of cartoon characters all over.
Okay.
I did one year that was a homage to Hieronymus Bosch, huge squid on it and just, debauchery going on. Like I said, I just got away with murder. And it was great. I never faced resistance. No one didn't like my drawings. People might not have liked me, but, that was more my attitude than anything. So, high school, just, awesome.
Mm-hmm.
And I went to college where my girlfriend was because, that's what you do. And, I didn't even think about going to art school because, I knew how to draw and I knew I wanted to do a comic book and I didn't need to go to art school for that. So I decided to go in for marketing because I needed to. I wanted the business side of it.
Right.
I wanted to be able to sell my stuff. I came from, the skateboard, indie music, DIY type thing. I'm not going to Marvel or DC. I'm making my own comic book company and publishing my own stuff. And, I'm going to live in a van. It's going to have stickers on it. And, it's going to be awesome.
The dream.
Oh, yeah. The van dream. I think
right.
All red-blooded males have
it's funny,
living
though,
in the van dream.
The adult move was, that makes total sense. You're like, but I don't know how to market it, so I'm going to be taught how to market it. That was the adult side. And then you're like, so I can live in a van and put cool stickers and go skateboarding all day. Like that's the part where it's like, all right, dial it back there, kiddo. but no, that is very smart to go, you were going to grassroots it. So, how did working in marketing, did it help? I would assume so, but.
So marketing lasted about a week.
Really? Okay. I'm going to take back all that, thinking like an adult thing now.
No. So, marketing lasted about a week, and I went, with tail and portfolio between my legs to the art department and, kind of talked to the art dean and was like, look, I had this idea. It seemed like a good idea, but I want to go. I want to do art. I don't want to do this marketing stuff. This is not for me. And he looked at this portfolio that everyone loved.
Mm-hmm.
And he said, maybe you want to stay in marketing.
Oh my God.
And I stopped drawing for about 2 years.
Wow.
And it was the first piece of resistance I had run into, from being this little kid that, everybody loved to growing up as a teenager that had a horrible attitude, but everybody still loved me, because I drew these funny pictures. And I'm sure people are going to listen to this from high school and be like, we did not love you, Renee. What are you talking about? It was this first hit of resistance, and it was this first hit of reality that maybe being an artist was not going to be as easy of a ride as I thought it was going to be.
But let me interject there, though. While that was like a sick burn that the marketing guy did to you, like that was pretty like, wow, he nailed it. And not saying that your art sector or something. I'm just saying that was a pretty like, his response was like, wow, he's a freaking stand-up comedian, this guy. But in the sense that he was not your demographic. He was not your target audience. So of course he's not going to, but the thing too is for you to find that audience, for you to get it out there, knowing how to market what you do is actually kind of it makes his answer actually kind of brilliant. Like, I don't get this. You just showed me something going, check this out. I'm going back to art. And I'm like, what am I looking at? And that's the thing. Even the way you handed it to him and saying, I need to go, it actually was kind of a 2-tier response in the sense where it's like, you need to figure this out because there probably are people that like this, but I'm not one of them. And you just handed it to me like I was going to go kick ass, go do that. So it's kind of interesting.
I didn't take it that way at all. It was, it was just a huge rejection. And like I said, I stopped drawing. I started writing at that point. And, writing songs and writing short story stuff. So I was getting my creative juices out in that way.
You still created, which is a good thing. Yeah.
The comic thing just still sat around the base of my skull and just gnawed at me. And every couple of years it pops up and rears its ugly head. And that's how I ended up in Austin. I, got that urge and I wanted to get away from everybody and be alone and draw a comic book. So I packed up everything, moved to Austin. My girlfriend at the time was living in Mississippi. So we were going to do the long distance thing. That lasted maybe a week and we broke up and I ended up in the downward spiral of depression. Did not draw the comic book.
Okay.
Didn't basically, I don't think I didn't do much of any type of art when I was in Austin. There was a new town, a lot of distractions, and that kind of took over.
How were you supporting yourself during this time? Like, what kind of?
I worked at Kinko's.
Okay.
Yeah,
it's actually a good place for a comic book artist to work.
If you're actually doing something, it's a great place to work. To take advantage of that. But I wasn't, so that didn't work out so well. Ended up moving back home with my parents, kind of licking my wounds from my Austin adventure. And the funny thing about the Austin thing is I don't think I told anybody why I moved to Austin. I don't think I ever vocalized it that I'm moving to Austin to write this comic book.
And even people there wouldn't know if they could help you because they didn't know what you were looking for?
Yeah, I don't think I ever told anybody that. And there's a lot of stuff that, that goes on in my head that I don't get out to people. Which is why the autobiographical comic is great for me because I end up getting a lot of that stuff out. So yeah, moved home, ended up dating a girl named Mickey who was in graphic design. She taught me how to use Photoshop and Illustrator, and she and I started a graphic design company in New Orleans. Her with her formal training and me with my skateboard graphics and heavy metal logo, drawing, we made a really good team. And, we did graphic design for a while. And then we started a music magazine in New Orleans. Cause we knew how to lay out a magazine.
Okay.
And we both liked music and we both had tons of friends that were in this unappreciated indie music scene in New Orleans.
What year was this?
So this was early 2000s, maybe 2001, 2002.
Okay. And this was a paper zine or were you doing an actual glossy?
Yeah, it was a glossy. It was a full-color glossy magazine. Yeah. Didn't make any money on it. The ad sales ended up on me, which ended up crying a lot in the car because I hated going door to door trying to sell ads to people who didn't want to buy ads.
Yeah.
Again, the marketing thing would have come in really handy at that point, but, didn't have that. Around that time, I also started doing flyers and posters for bands. So doing gig posters and, getting into silk screen stuff.
You're saying like full on flyers. Yeah. Oh, wow. Nice.
That's where the Kinko's connection also came in pretty helpful for getting, flyers printed out, stuff like that. Katrina hit and threw everybody in that area for a loop. Our house in New Orleans had 7 feet of water in it. And I think it's probably clear I don't take rejection well. And I considered that a rejection.
Really? You took it personally.
I took it personally. Katrina did that personally. I didn't go back to New Orleans for about a year and a half.
Okay.
I would go back to see my parents, but I wouldn't set foot in New Orleans for the longest time. And I also didn't want to have anything to do with art or music when we got to Austin. And Austin's, huge music town.
Right.
Running a music magazine here would have been a no-brainer. But it was too much. I just didn't want to do it. I
heard they even have this festival that happens there with music sometimes.
I think I've heard of that too.
Yeah.
It's a little underground thing, right?
Uh-huh.
Nobody goes to it.
Yeah. It never lasted.
No. But I just I was kind of taken aback, and then I went back to writing. I wrote a couple of books. Started with the NaNoWriMo thing. Have you ever heard of that?
Yes.
It's National Novel Writing Month. It happens in November. So I used that and did a couple of books that have gone nowhere. But I got my creative juices out. I wrote some screenplays. And
really,
they didn't go anywhere.
Oh, you didn't do anything.
I don't have that. I don't have that marketing thing. I don't have that. That being able to sell yourself. And clearly, I know I don't like rejection. So trying to put myself out there is just it's a rough thing for me to think about doing.
To be clear, nobody really likes rejection. So just.
There's some people that do.
I suppose.
Have you been on Reddit?
Actually, I was just talking with, I talked with a person previously, or one of the other interviews I did, and I was talking about how I started posting my comics to Imgur. And I did it specifically because I know that is going to be one, it's a total just like flyby. People will see it in a feed or when they search for a certain subject like comics or something like that. And it's going to be a knee-jerk reaction. And I'm doing it specifically to get used to being able to take criticism, even if it's unwarranted. And so I've literally been putting stuff there so I can get more used to it. Most of the time, I mean, you expect rejection. It's just you don't hear it a lot. A lot of people are very polite. So I went somewhere where I know that people won't be polite. But oddly enough, it's been kind of a give and take. And it's been a lot of interesting insights, and then other insights where people are just like, wow, that person's just being mean. But I've literally been trying to do that and take rejection a little bit. So when you said Reddit,
it's build yourself up.
Yeah. And Imgur is kind of like the Reddit for images.
I kind of started putting a theme together that I don't really like rejection. And it's weird because I keep running into it over and over again, and you would think that at some point I would go, you got to get through this. Not to spoil anything, but I kind of did.
Good.
I started, we're here in Austin, and I started working at a rather large technology company. And, which is something I never wanted to do. I never wanted to be, cubicle and, that type of stuff.
What kind of stuff do you do though? Like what's the position?
It was at the time it was technical support.
Oh, okay.
Stuff. And I, started getting that gnawing feeling in the back of my skull, which is honestly always there. It's not that it goes away, but sometimes it grows.
Oh yeah.
And I read a book by Tim Ferriss called The 4-Hour Work Week.
Right.
And I'm sure, Tim would hate to admit this, but I'm sure there's a lot of people out there that quit their jobs without any plan by being inspired by that book.
Yeah.
And I'm one of them. 2008, middle of that big recession we were going through, I quit my job and I was like, I'm going to be an artist. And
you just stood up in your cubicle and said it just like that and then walked out.
Pretty much. No clue about what I was going to do. And really the path in the 4-hour work week is not designed for art. And he sells it,
Yes.
and I mean, I bought it. And, also in the back of my mind knowing that, this probably wasn't going to work. But I ended up being really prolific and putting out a lot of artwork that didn't go anywhere, that didn't go past my bedroom, didn't go past me sending a couple of photos to friends. And my girlfriend at the time, she lived with me, so of course she got to see it. And I feel like I did a lot of art. It was good, but again, that the ability to market myself was just not there. I threw some stuff up on Etsy and put it on my Facebook page and expected the world to, fall over it. And,
right.
Lars Ulrich was going to become my Patreon, and, it was just going to be great. It didn't happen, obviously. So I, ran out of money and went back to the technology company, which I still work at today.
Oh, okay.
And kind of resigned myself to the corporate job. And I every couple of years that there's that cycle where the comic book pops up again, and it becomes a thing. We have a indie comic convention called Staple here in Austin.
Okay.
It's been running for about 14 years. It's really an amazing convention. All indie stuff. No, none of the big three, comic book companies. A lot of self-published stuff there. And every time I go to it, man, it would just eat at me because I'm seeing everybody doing the thing I want to do.
Yeah.
And I went every year, faithfully, go every year. And in 1 year, I just went, you know what? I'm buying a table.
Really? How much are the tables, first of all?
$300 maybe.
Really?
Was it?
Okay.
Yeah, it wasn't that bad.
Okay.
I highly advise if you get a chance. Of course, they're not going to have one this year because of our friend COVID.
Right.
But if you get a chance, it's a fantastic convention. Just a weekend thing.
Yeah.
So I bought the table, and again, without a plan, without an idea, and without building up those chops of drawing every day, I completely failed on this one. I would stand there at my drafting table with paper, supplies ready to go, and I couldn't even bring myself to sit down at the table.
So you booked yourself into it, but you had no material.
Yeah. Yeah. And
okay.
I had a long enough lead time.
Yeah.
That if I did it, went to printing, I had all of my stuff planned out of the timeline would work.
Uh-huh.
But I had to actually do the comic.
Right. I kind of love this though. Okay. Continue.
So somewhere in the middle of that, I went, I've got a problem. I have a problem, and I need to go talk to somebody. And I found a therapist, and I went sit in front of this guy and explained to him pretty much what I just told you.
Yeah.
And it was a crisis of identity. I was, am I really an artist? It's what I thought about myself since I was a little kid, but I don't draw anymore. I don't paint anymore. I'm not creating anything. And at that point, I wasn't even writing anymore. Am I really an artist? And this dude listened to all of this and went, all right, well, I want you to go and think about this, that if you're not doing art, you're not an artist. And, it was like, the air got sucked out of the room. My head started spinning. because I didn't know who I was. I didn't know what life looked like with me not doing art. Although that's what my life looked like. It was me not doing art because I wasn't doing anything. And this guy, I think he meant well. I don't think he was malicious or anything.
Mm-hmm.
And it may have been the same deal with the dean of the art department. It may have been one of those things where he wanted me to actually go and think about it, and that to propel me to do something. I ended up going to see another therapist, and I got diagnosed with ADHD at age 38, 39, which made a lot of sense, but it also was kind of a hard diagnosis to swallow. Because I looked back at all of these stops and starts and stops and starts, and I went, oh, maybe that's why all this was kind of happening. It wasn't that I was just a lazy shit. It was that there was, something actually going on there. So it was kind of hard to swallow, and I did something about it, though. I didn't want to use drugs for it. I found a therapist who specialized in ADHD, and I started seeing her, and she got me back into drawing. And she pushed me to Instagram. And
I think you started on Instagram just back in 2018, if I remember correctly.
Yeah. And that was right around the time where I started drawing Dailyish. And I say Dailyish because it definitely wasn't every single day.
Yeah.
But that was kind of where all that happened. And I went through another breakup. My saga's all through. There's breakups and makeups, and I ended up dating this gal, and we're engaged now, and she has 2 kids.
Oh,
so my life went from I can do whatever I want, and I just kind of have to worry about myself and my girlfriend at the time, to I've got a family, and I've got, these kids that are my stepkids now. So, things changed in my brain. And I realized I couldn't do that, just jump up and quit the job and go try and write a comic book anymore. And I realized I had to take things at a different angle. Which brings us to 2020, this fantastic year that, it is what it is. So beginning this year, I started off with, I'm going to do one thing that's like a good habit. And I in January, I got off of sugar. I stopped eating sugar.
Oh, really?
And my intention on this was, I'm going to do one new good habit each month. That seemed like a doable thing.
Yeah.
By the time February hit, I had a chart, a weekly chart with 16 things I did every day, and I would, knock those things off. And sometimes I didn't. But that grew into 30, 36, 37 things that I do every day. And it's stuff as simple as check the trash every day, make sure the trash needs to be taken out, take out the trash, do the crossword puzzle every day, read a book every day, read a little bit of a book, and of course this was all in a sneaky way of getting me back into doing art every day, because that got added to the list. Do the daily comic, do the art, and get into that stuff. And on this little path that I started at the beginning of the year, I began reading a book and kind of going through a workbook of, I don't know where it is. It's called The Artist Way. It's by Julia Cameron.
Okay. I don't know if I'm familiar with that one.
It's about recovering your creative side and tapping into that part of your being. 10 years ago, if you told me I'd be going through this, I'd be like, fuck you, and this is bullshit. But man, it's been fantastic. I also started doing Ivan Brunelli's cartooning book. Mm-hmm. So I started putting things in my way that have helped me start doing the daily comics. And I thought about the daily comics earlier in the year, and I did a couple of them. And then once we hit the quarantine time, I started kind of popping them up a little bit more often because I needed to express some stuff.
Yeah.
And one of those was May 1st. And then there was May 2nd. And then there was May 3rd. And then it just didn't stop. And I just kept doing it. I didn't have any intention on, it wasn't a planned thing. And I definitely left out the career and money aspect of it on purpose, because I'm really afraid that this could kind of all end if I start pressuring myself too much.
I can see that.
So I've learned some lessons from past experiences, and I'm taking it very, very slow with the art process. I started doing watercolor stuff. I started doing collage stuff.
I'd love to learn collage stuff.
It's interesting. It's a totally different mindset than art or illustration. I started doing a couple of other comics. I took drafting in high school and in college, and I've always liked geometric designs. And I've started doing these geometric designs, and I've got a couple on my Instagram where basically it's conversations between two geometric figures. And I also have this thing kind of sprouted out, and I've been doing it not daily, but definitely, frequently. This little robot that is kind of a cross between Frankenstein's monster and me as a curse word laden 14-year-old boy.
Right.
But he's kind of fun. I haven't released him into the Instagram public yet.
Okay, because I was just looking through your feed right now, and I was like, I don't see that one.
Yeah, I'm still kind of fleshing him out. I'm not ready for him to go out into the world and get abused by people, and I'm just not ready for that yet. He's too precious.
There are a lot of other things. They're not going to go, oh, good, he finally released this. We can use it as a meme now.
They're just sitting there waiting. They're like,
right. They're refreshing your Instagram feed, going, when's he going to post it? Right. So don't put that much pressure on yourself. But the other thing is, I find it interesting that you started doing the autobiography. Like, I had discovered the Ivan Brunetti thing, his book, and done the same thing accidentally, and I started it on May 1st. Was when I did my
really?
Yeah, on May 1st. That was the day that I decided I was going to do a daily comic, because I was going through it, and I'm just going through it to try and get inspiration. Then I saw that, and I'm like, for me, I can't write. Or when I do write, it's just like, what do I talk about? Maybe I have an idea for like one panel or something. Like, I don't have anything that's going to keep going because I'm not a writer.
Right.
And then I'm like, oh, I can just pick something that happens each day and do it in 4 panels. Yeah. And that was the day that I went to go meet my wife and tell her, and she told me she had breast cancer. And then that's when that became like, I used it as a form to express myself.
Oh, yeah.
And it went from there. And then as the year went on, and then she finally is free and clear, God, do the knock on wood, even though I'm not superstitious, and all that kind of stuff. And now it's really just finding things to write about. But I had the opposite effect with being quarantined, because my problem is I had been trying to experience new things to the point where, like, sometimes the comic would make me go, I want to do something exciting today. I'd love to be able to journal that. Then sitting at home, it's like, well, here I am at home again. Like, for me, it had the opposite effect. And I really had to dig deep into, I started even thinking of, or looking, because all of it's I don't fabricate anything that's in the comic. And It had me looking through my day going, is there anything funny or something I said that while we're sitting here talking to each other, you have to amuse each other somehow. So what's something stupid I said, or what's something, and then I started being able to put like jokes into it, but they were jokes that actually happened during that day. Whereas before it would be like, I wanted to journal something I could go back and remember. And now it's like, there's, I can't even think of one that I did the other day, but it's now it's kind of like, it's not a panel setup, pa-chow, like the end panel. It's, it's more like, oh, here's a stupid thing. And I'm an idiot for doing it or whatever. And so now I'm able to kind of learn that sort of thing, but it's weird having to adjust, but keeping the comic to try and keep my chops open is one thing that I'm actually really happy about. So, and you said you're trying to do it daily, but you're not doing it daily? Or
no, I've been doing it since May 1st. Yeah.
Okay. All right. I couldn't remember because even though I follow you on Instagram, it doesn't show you it kind of picks and chooses what it's going to show you.
I don't post the comic every day.
Oh,
so I've been very picky, choosy about what I post on Instagram.
Okay.
Because there's some stuff that's still a little raw, and
fair enough.
I'm not ready for it to go out. There's probably going to be some stuff later on in the month. My dad died a year ago this month, and I'm pretty sure there's going to be some stuff coming up that's not going to go to Instagram. One of my closest friends from fourth grade, she just died a couple of weeks ago, and I didn't post on Instagram for a long time because there was, it's just there's nothing my stupid drawings can do.
Yeah.
Even though they're communicating my emotions about the subject, but it just didn't do it justice in my mind. But there's definitely stuff during that time where I talked about it, and it's just there.
Mm-hmm.
I've thought about, I say I don't think about money and I don't think about career, but I'd be, a complete liar if I said that was the 100% truth. I of course think, hey, look, I've been doing this for a couple months now. You've got a volume of stuff. You could put out a book at some point, with this stuff in it, and I see like, have you seen Ben Snakepitt's stuff?
I don't know.
He was from, I don't think he was from Austin originally. It's kind of like a punk comic. And he did this little daily comic that was just very, very, kind of like yours. It was very slice of life, just, I went to work today and, came home, had some pizza and stuff, and he's done this for years and years and has come out with several volumes of books. But yeah, he was a big influence on me doing it. And of course your stuff too. I love the slice of life stuff. It's just, and it's so funny, like getting to know you through that comic. It's weird because I get to see the you that you want to project to people. Mm-hmm. So I know you from the comic, and but I'm sure that's just a small facet of what you're like. But I remember the first time you talked about you were going around town and you saw your son. I was like, oh wow, he's got a kid. Oh, that's crazy. Like I had no idea.
Yeah.
Because, just
I have old kids.
Just like looking at the comic, it's like I don't know the rest of your life that that goes on. But then you're like, oh, he's got a kid. Look at that. That's cool. And I love seeing about the train stuff that y'all are doing, and it's a cool it's kind of like Facebook posts where you just kind of everybody posts what's going on, like, oh, I went here, went there, but you and I and Ben and a lot of other people are doing it in this artistic way that I find is really rewarding. I like doing it. Again, I have not run into criticism on Instagram.
No.
Nobody has trolled me. Nobody has said, dude, you suck. Why don't you learn how to draw straight? Maybe learn paneling, because my stuff is all over the place.
That's also because people choose to follow you. That's why I'm saying Imgur is like, they go to look for comics and it just shows up.
Right.
But the one time I did get criticism on Instagram, it was kind of funny. So I was testing out, when I first started posting them, I was testing out, because they're like, hey, we want to make money. So if you boost this post, you'll get this many more people to look at it. And I'm like, I'm going to test out some boosts. So I did one. And the very first response was someone said, am I supposed to just sit and read all of this? I'm like, no. And then that's when it made me realize, I'm like, oh yeah, they didn't choose to look at this. So you can't just like splatter a comic in front of somebody. Yeah. But I was just like, wow, spot on, lady. That was nice.
Yeah, that target demographic that you're looking for. And it's funny because I think about, and I've thought about my target demographic, because after the whole marketing fiasco, I've read marketing books and I've read business books, and, I subscribe to Entrepreneur, and I've always stayed in that kind of, field where there's a possibility of me starting something. I think about the target audience, and it's René Gauthreaux, age 43,
right.
lives in Pflugerville. Like, I can't think of anybody else who would want to read this goofy stuff.
But
but I'm sure they're out there somewhere.
Exactly. There are the shops you go to, they exist because other people go to them because they're interested in the same thing. So really the target audience is you, and that's what you would focus on. Other people that you would like to meet, like somewhere where you'd go and go, these are my people. How would all of us love to go into a place like that? And that's exactly it. Is there other people out there and you find them?
I don't know. I don't think I'd want to be in a room with a bunch of me.
And then, and speaking of that, so one last thing I'd like to ask you is, with what you're doing, is there anything you have coming up or anything that you're working on that you'd like to tell us about, that, or maybe what people could expect, or just even setting yourself, like you were saying, put yourself in a situation where like, this is what I plan to do. So is there anything you'd like to mention before we wrap up here?
I've got 18 comics coming out. It's going to be great. We've got an animated series.
I would love to do all that.
Netflix. No, I have nothing that I want to plug. I have nothing I want to sell. And I realize, from listening to your podcast and going back and listening to a couple of them the past couple of days, it's like, everybody's got their website, and I'm like, wow, I'm gonna throw them for a loop here. Yeah, I don't have a plug.
Okay. I truthfully don't see anything wrong with that. I mean, you're doing it because you enjoy it.
Instagram. Yeah, follow me on Instagram, and something might happen.
Probably the best marketing headline ever. Follow me on Instagram, and something might happen.
Something might happen.
There's your pitch.
I'm not going to stop doing the daily comic. I have a kind of a schedule that I post on Instagram now, and if it's not the daily comic, it'll be, I do the little emotional kaijus, which I find are really fun, where, I've got these kaijus that have, some little problems, and they talk about them. And the conversational drafting, where I've got the geometric figures kind of having a little conversation with each other. And I'm taking it very, very slow and very easy, and not rushing into things.
Okay.
Because I've done that so many times before, and I've jumped off that cliff without a plan and without a good platform and without an idea, and it has bit me in the ass so many times that I'm just not ready to do it again. So yeah, I'm on Instagram, and you can follow me there, and you can troll me if you want.
Well, I'm glad that I got a chance to talk with you today. I was happy that you responded when I reached out to you. I know that I've followed you for a while, but I was like, while I'm looking for people, I'm like, who do I follow? So I just started going through my Instagram follows, and
it was a big surprise that you reached out to me, and very welcome, and I'm completely flattered, and such a big fan of yours.
I'm glad.
And what you're doing, I think is is just an amazing thing.
Thanks.
For all the artists that you support, and for yourself, it's really cool. I really enjoy it.
Thank you. Well, on that note,